On the Edge, in association with Uncensored Magazine.
Hello and welcome back to On the Edge with me, your host. I am Valentine St. Aubyn, and thank you for tuning to this additional extra special edition of On the Edge. And of course, Helen is still with me, and we've been having a fascinating conversation about astrology, which doesn't actually always get aired on Edge Media in relation to how we've been discussing tonight. So it's
or
quite
anywhere.
different. Or anywhere, because it has been demonized. So hopefully we have enlightened people a bit more as to what's been going on, and showing how astrology relates to the individual and the world around us, and our soul, our system, and how it all works together. So before we continue our conversation, Helen, we're going to have another performance from Pedro, who is going to play us another song. It's another instrumental song, and then after he's finished, he's going to join us here on the desk and have a quick chat. So I will give it to Pedro to play another song for us.
Okay, well, thank you again for your invitation. And this song is an acoustic instrumental, and it's called Olho del Mocho. I will explain later what that means. Okay.
Thank you, Pedro. You want to join us here on the desk and we can have a quick chat with you?
Thank you very much.
That was lovely, what you played. Very relaxing, very calming music. So you played 2 songs. Well, welcome to the gang here on the
It's a
desk.
privilege to sit next to you.
Yes, thank you for joining us, and thank you for playing for us tonight. We really did enjoy it.
Beautiful and wise. That's
Oh,
what
thank you, thank you. So you played 2 songs for us. What was the name of the first song?
Well, the name of the first song was called Child of Spirit. So it's a bit of a, not so much of a tribute, but it's putting the focus on a title that very much describes a bit of the dialogue between the scientific community at the moment, or for a while, should I say, and the other community, the psychic community or the spiritual community, whereby the scientific community is asking or is stating that when we die, so when the brain dies, we die too. Okay, and basically that's in opposition with, do we have a soul? Because if we do have a soul, a spirit in us, obviously that will take us into the afterlife. So is there life beyond death? So it kind of explores that topic a little bit.
And what was the name of the second song that you've just played?
The name
for
of the
us?
second song is called Olho del Mocho, and basically that's a bit of a joke to some extent there.
It's Portuguese,
based on a Portuguese common or popular gesture. Basically, there's a Portuguese gesture. You put your eye to your finger to your eye, and you sort of pull a little bit downwards. And it means when you do that to someone, usually as a satire or actually in a sort of affirmation, it just means that someone's trying to fool you. Someone's trying to pull the wool over your eyes. So I've pretty much that kind of having that title, it just means that we should be aware of people, systems, or governments or anything trying to conceal the truth, pulling the wool over our eyes. So it's called Olho, which is eye, del Mocho. Now, Mocho actually means owl. And
Okay,
if we cast if we cast our minds back to, for instance, when we were a bit young, children, so to speak, a lot of cartoons used to portray the wise animal in the family, sort of a playful stories, as the wise teacher, the little sort of academic hat on, sometimes portrayed even on academic booklets. And so the owl these days has taken that other meaning of the Illuminati, or of the ones in power, to some extent, of the powers that be. So it's a double meaning in the title, meaning Olho del Mocho. So be careful with the tricks that they may try to pull on you, and so educate yourself to be informed, so you don't fall under that spell.
And how have you been finding the discussion we've been having about astrology? I mean, obviously it kind of fits in with the second song that we were just discussing. It fits into what you're just saying, We've been talking about Pluto and Capricorn, and of course we've been talking about the financial crisis and what's been happening as Pluto's been moving through Capricorn. I mean, how do you find astrology generally speaking? Because obviously, Helen is an expert and I'm an amateur. I love astrology. How are you finding the discussion?
Well, I'm a layman, so I'm sort of not really informed or educated enough to really understand, all the different angles looking at the chart. But without a doubt, I know, because I've personal experiences and shown to me based on my chart. Actually, at a certain point, I had a chart made, also a synastry, I think they call it synastry chart, where you overlap 2 charts with somebody else. So I went through that experiment of actually having it demonstrated to me with really poignant examples that it does work. And sometimes I think this is a step that is missing in astrology, because it is so full of symbols that we don't understand, and each house is basically a bit like a Chinese character, where it's full of meanings.
Well, it has a life of its own, each house, doesn't it? Yeah.
It does. It's a different area of life. That's right. The chart is divided up into 12 houses, which, if you think of a chart being like a Shakespearean play, where the planets are the actors, the signs are the costumes that they put on, and then the houses are the stage sets where it plays out.
I think it's just great. I mean, I think that the majority of people think, and they banalize astrology because of obviously the ordinary things that they get from the papers, you know.
What's in the glossy magazines?
But they tend to go on this argument with that. The astrologers describe everything to everyone. So, for instance, if a person is, Capricorn or something, is having a bad day, everyone else is having a bad day. They always find something that's common to everyone to please everyone. But that's because they obviously are not informed that each house, although we may have overlapping topics, it's very specific and different from the next house after in the chart. And that's how you can define things, although sometimes they can overlap in some topics. So if you have that, sort of clarified to you, then you can move on and say, okay, now I understand that the houses, that they don't duplicate each other, so they make specific aspects to certain situations, and then go from there. And perhaps, so I would actually recommend anyone to start by having their chart done with an astrologer that they think is reputable. Go from there, analyze, and perhaps pick important dates in their lives and retrospectively assess, what was happening in the stars, with the planets. Because I do believe that everyone is born with a blueprint, as they call it. And I think in terms of the symbolism, if I could perhaps find a euphemism for it, or a metaphor, if anyone could perhaps see their blueprint that they're born with, okay, which is individual to everyone, and see it as part of a circle. And then on the outer circle, if they can imagine a ring of snake and ladders, the game that we all play, but instead of having it in a sort of a cardboard, imagine it as a sort of a circle around the main blueprint. And as that circle spins around the main blueprint, it will send you in different directions, and that's what the outer planets are doing outside your chart, your main chart that never changes. And if you see it like that, I think the ordinary person can perhaps, oh, that's how it's done. Maybe I should look into it and see if I get a ladder or if I get a snake going forward. Yeah,
that's very true, and that sort of brings up perhaps the topic of why I feel that we won the Olympic bid. Because I think this is so fascinating.
The chart for England is very clear, wasn't it?
Yeah, if we could maybe just bring up the chart for England, chart 103, and that this shows you.
We've only got about a minute, so.
But we'll come back to it. Shows you very quickly what Pedro was saying is that the chart of England is in the middle, and the transits, the positions of the planets at the end of this year, where they are in relation. And the reason that I thought, well before England did win the bid for the Olympics, that we would win it, is Pluto, the planet of control and power, is exactly on England's sun and point in the chart to do with our position in the world.
So it highlighted us, it shows us, it was in the stars.
It's an opportunity for us either to step into our power, or it can be an opportunity whereby it brings out the fear and needing to control more. So, but with all the world's eyes on England, I think it's very significant. I think we are one of the main players in 2012, to be honest.
I think so too, and it's very interesting with the Olympic bid and how that works. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back in just a minute.
On the Edge, in association with Uncensored Magazine.
Hello and welcome back to On the Edge with me, your host. I am Valentine St. Aubyn, and this is the second part of our discussion we've been having this evening about the astrology of 2012, and I've been having with me in the studio Helen Sewell. And Helen was just speaking before we actually went to a break about England's chart and how it relates to the Olympic bid and what was going on in the chart. So Helen, do you want to continue what you were saying, if we can get chart 102 back up on the screen for us, please?
Okay. Well, for those of you who don't realise, countries have charts the same as people, because everything has a birth, everything has a moment in time, and because of that, it's reflected in the positions of the planets in the sky. Now, for the chart of the UK, I use the crowning of William the Conqueror on Christmas Day, 1066. Because for several reasons, when the Normans invaded, they completely took over our culture and changed it forever. We've had a virtual unbroken line of kings and queens since that time. And also, it's 1066, everybody knows 1066.
Yeah, hopefully.
You know, even the unification chart of 1801, the Sun is still in the same position, and Pluto has returned to its same position, which I think's very interesting, because it's a death and transformation and a rebirth into a new nation. But I particularly like the 1066 chart. And as I was saying before the break, Pluto will be on England's Sun and mid-heaven, and I think that's very, very interesting. But just to say briefly about the chart of the UK, because kings tended to be crowned at midday, because that put the Sun right at the top of the chart. That's the yellow circle with the dot. And so it's very, very powerfully positioned there. We've got a Capricorn Sun, so we like our traditions, you know, the monarchy or unchanging rules. We like to build something solid. It gives us our sort of stoic, melancholic type personality, but also our ironic sense of humour.
And the stiff upper lip.
And the stiff upper lip, absolutely. We have the fiery sign of Aries coming up over the horizon, and that is loves a conquest.
And the empire.
And of course,
completely described by that.
Yes, completely described by that, because Aries wants to go out and conquer something. It's quite warlike, and that in combination with our Capricorn Sun wanting to establish something solid that will last very much. And the moon, that's the orange moon symbol over on the left-hand side of the chart, is tucked away in the watery sign of Pisces, and I think that gives us a sort of very compassionate nature. It's very humanitarian. But at the moment, we're really coming into focus, and so even though we were rank outsiders against France to win the Olympic bid, with Pluto going over that point in our chart, it will propel us onto the world stage. And I think that's very significant for 2012, because there's something bigger. We get more crop circles than any other country.
We do, absolutely.
You know,
we have as well, haven't we? There's tradition there.
Yes. It's almost like the way our psyche is as a nation, that we can somehow mediate what's going on, and we're the bridge between America and Europe and the rest of the world. We're a big player, and I think it's quite fascinating the way that all the world's eyes, for good and ill, will see how we are.
I think maybe, this is just my own personal opinion, as we're seeing a crumbling in Europe, across Europe, with many countries now facing the debt crisis that they have, and we've spoken about Pluto and Capricorn, and it's dissolving, you know, disintegrating structures and the financial institutions and governments and what have you. You know, maybe there's something to be said with England sort of also going, we will be going through that, even though they've been keeping quiet about it. Something to be said by England, who is such a big, powerful nation, has had such a vast history, dominating the world, falling maybe to its knees. And again, showing that Europe is now losing its ascendancy, and the older countries, you know, India, Brazil, Africa, coming back up into their own, maybe how it was a very long time ago. So, so I guess maybe spotlighting that there is change afoot, you know.
Well, this is global. This is global, and any country has a birth chart, and so it's going to go through. It's going to have those planets aspecting it in some way or another. For instance, America is a Cancer country, so Pluto is opposing its Cancer planets. It's got 3 planets in Cancer. So they also are going to go through, you know, a huge amount of change over the next few years. Actually,
absolutely. Do you want to have a look at some text again and see what we have there? I think there was an interesting one that was talking. Oops. What's this computer doing? Oh, this is a good one. Will it embarrass astrologers if 2012 proves to be a damp squib? Pat, good show. I think we get the gist of that. Will it embarrass astrologers if 2012 proves to be nothing? What do you think about that?
Well, you just have to open your front door, or you just have to turn your TV on, and I think nobody could describe what's going on in the world at the moment as a damp squib. I really don't, and I mean, I've been talking about the astrology of these times for about 7 years now.
Yes, you have.
And the things that I said 7 years ago, when there seemed to be no revolutionary spirit, no, you know, the
when
control,
the signs weren't there.
when the signs weren't there, and even students seemed to be, you know, very, very passive. And I was saying, oh, you know, people are going to wake up, and things are going to start to disintegrate, as you say, so they can be rebuilt if it's not working, and things are going to be exposed as well, and it includes MPs' expenses, what's going on with the Murdochs. There's a lot politically going on at the moment, and because Pluto sort of dredges up all the dirt, if you like, out of the underworld to be transformed, this is a time when that will happen.
It's interesting that you've raised the issue of the Murdochs, because again, that's another mini empire of its own, isn't it? And totally being brought to its knees. And having to answer for things they've never had to answer for, you know, and be put on the spot.
Exactly.
And I suppose, you know, that's the positive side of Pluto and Capricorn, bringing that up to the surface.
Yes, because it needs to. It needs to change. When systems aren't working, you can guarantee that the outer planets are going to certainly mirror what this transformation that we've got to go through. It's just that you know, one has been hot on the heels to the next one. First of all with Pluto, then Uranus, and now Neptune. And it's like we're reeling, if you like, with the changes that are going on, but they're just getting underway. So there's a lot more to come in terms of
so that kind of leads into another text that I've seen that sort of caught my eye, and this is saying, what does the chart for 2013 show? So, you know, as we have been discussing, there is more to come. Just maybe briefly, how are things looking for 2013? Because we do have this very strong alignment with Pluto square Uranus. How is 2013 looking? How do you I feel think, as an astrologer?
I think more the same, and as the square affects particularly countries, the chart of the EU is particularly under the influence of the Pluto-Uranus square next year, and it makes me wonder what's going to happen there. So maybe the big crash might be
coming next year with the EU.
Well,
maybe.
Yes, maybe. Maybe.
Or the beginnings of it might take a while for it to fully.
Exactly. But in stages. But I think that's particularly significant. And various countries, and also the monarchy as well, I think could well be affected next year. Anything to do with the establishment, institutions, the banking system. We're just in the early stages of it. But when people talk about the transformations of 2012, I think we're already in it, and I think certainly since 2008 we can all witness big shifts, and a lot of people are noticing it in their personal lives as well.
Well, there's many of us that have been going through big changes. I'm one of those unfortunate souls. I have a Sagittarius ascendant and moon in the late degrees, and I went through a Pluto transit back in 2007, and it was horrendous. It was this disintegration, basically, but being rebuilt.
Yes.
So when you use those terms, they definitely are real.
Yes.
There's no way of saying, oh, but it's not really that way. When you experience it for yourself and you know what's happening.
Exactly.
Because many people don't know why they're experiencing the things that they're experiencing. They just think, oh, well, it's just happening. But there's always a rhyme and reason for everything.
No. And I like the myth of Persephone when you were saying about that disintegration, to do with Pluto, because she lived a very innocent life with her mother Demeter, and it was forever summer. There was no death. Everything blossomed and grew, and then one day Pluto comes out of the underworld, abducts Persephone, drags her into the underworld and rapes her and takes away her innocence. And it can feel like that. You can't go back.
No, certainly not.
You can only go forward, but the experience can be a bit like having had your innocence taken away from you. And when Pluto went over America's ascendant in 2002, when 9/11 happened, Pluto took away their innocence.
And also put them in fear
way
as well. And I suppose they're sort of still in fear.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
I don't think they really have moved on from that, you know.
Yeah, because you can look at it in terms of an opportunity. It's an opportunity for growth, and you can act to something like that with fear and wanting to control, or it's a really a good opportunity to try and transform one's life so that you don't live in fear, you live more in love. Yeah.
Which is the key to everything, as they say. We've got another one. I think this is a kind of a funny question, and I think they know the answer, but I'll do it anyway, because I know that, well, we know that they know a lot about astrology. But do the banks use astrology in their systems and buildings?
I suspect
or maybe you know, corporations or people that are running things. Maybe that's probably better worded.
I suspect an awful lot of the establishment, in whatever form, uses occult means, if you like, and I don't mean that in the black arts way. I think the word occult is misused.
It has been misused. Yes. Yeah.
For instance, President Reagan and Nancy, they hardly did anything without consulting their astrologer to find out the best times and dates to do things and that kind of thing. So it's well known, and even the Third Reich, they definitely use the occult for darker ends. But yes, it's an incredibly powerful tool. There are astrologers that actually specialise in financial astrology because it's about cycles, cycles within cycles, and these you can plot. So yeah, if you're in the financial world and you see Pluto in Capricorn, you may well worry. Unless you know how to use that, and there was a trader on, you know, sort of last year talking about how he uses the downfall for his own ends.
Interesting.
Yes, and that's not a good way to use Pluto energy. It should be for the good of humanity, not for personal gain or control.
And let's talk about what we have been seeing, like with the bankers, you know, all these characters, the Goldman Sachs boys, the JP Morgan gang, you know, money going missing, countries getting further into debt and austerity measures, but really no heads have been rolling. It seems like at the higher level they're getting away with it. Do you think they're going to continue to get away with it, or will they hit a bump and Pluto might turn around and slap them one and expose them?
I would like to think that that's what's going to happen, actually, because Pluto in Capricorn, it's about the death and transformation and the rebirth of something, and very few institutions, I think, will escape that. things we've known for a long time. Even when, as soon as Pluto went into Capricorn, we had the death of Woolworths. You know,
Yeah,
whoever thought that Woolworths would ever,
yeah.
you know, quite a few long-established countries met their end. It's like the wheels of evolution. We can't stop them because we've still got to progress, and the outer planets, they're reflecting this. I think certainly, you know, in the 16 years we're going to see huge changes with the monarchy as well. I mean, okay, you could say that's very predictable because of the age of the Queen, but yeah, I think it will be very interesting what transpires, because the monarchy is going to look very, very different after the death of our Queen.
Yeah, I think people are going to think about it differently. Well, we're going to take a break and we'll be back to have the last section.
On the Edge, in association with Uncensored Magazine.
Hello and welcome back to On the Edge with me, your host Valentine St. Aubyn, and thank you so much for sticking around. Well, I hope you have been enjoying the conversation that we have been having this evening. We've tried to introduce something a little bit different from the norm with astrology, and contextualizing it and bringing it down to reality to show how it works in the real world. So with me again, Helen, who's been with me all evening, and let's talk about, we spoke about Uranus and Aries in the first part of this interview. Let's go a little bit deeper with Uranus and Aries, because there's quite a bit of useful information there that I know that you'd like to express further. So what are the other things that we need to keep in mind with this transit?
I mean, one of the really exciting things about Uranus in Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. It's very much about the new, the innovative. It's the birth of something. And we've got Uranus, the planet to do with new technology, to do with breakthroughs, to do with enlightenment. He's the awakener. Yeah. He wakens up our consciousness. He's the one that gives us these brilliant ideas, you know, that flash of intuition and that eureka moment. So the exciting thing about Uranus in Aries is the fantastic breakthroughs that we can make in modern science. And we've got the Hadron Collider experiments going on. Yeah. That is absolutely typical of that kind of thing. It's playing God a bit, but it's very much in keeping with that kind of Promethean spirit, that forever searching. And I think that we'll see a lot more breakthroughs. Pluto in Capricorn even, because Capricorn is also rules history, and I'm thinking maybe old wisdom and old records from the past could be unearthed, and we could get some really revealing things happen there.
Well, it's interesting that you've actually brought that point up, because people have already been going to the elders of the Mayans, the Hopis, you know, looking for their lead, looking for information about the times that we're in right now. So I think, yeah, you're very spot on with what you see right there, because it's already happening in that relation.
Wouldn't it be wonderful if we found out what was really under the pyramids?
Well, they've been trying to find out,
That's the kind of thing that could get unearthed, you know, that sort of underworld knowledge coming to the fore. I think could be incredibly exciting. When Neptune was going through Aquarius, the technological sign of Aquarius, how did we have that sense that we are all one? It was through Aquarian technology, you know, the mobile phone, the internet.
We got plugged in.
We got plugged in.
Wi-Fi.
So now Neptune's moved into Pisces. Maybe we won't need that Aquarian technology anymore. Maybe we'll really start to develop our psychic skills or telepathy.
Well, they have said that people are evolving, you know, that's the theory, that we are evolving, becoming more conscious beings. And they have said that there will be a breaking down of what we think is separate, you know. So we'll be more connected with the heart chakra. and also, as you're saying, like telepathically as well. So interesting. If you're not a secretive person, I guess that's okay. If you are, you're like, oh, maybe I don't want that.
But it's very intuitive, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's that sort of knowing. It comes from Neptune's very watery. It's very much to do with feelings, compassion, selfless service. All these things. They often say about Neptune is to suffer or to serve, because the other side of it, the darker side, is much more victim-like. You know, much more sort of waiting for redemption. People with a strong Neptune often need to mediate those feelings through art or music or some kind of spiritual meditation or something like that. So these are really, really, I think, fascinating and interesting times that possibly we could have some fantastic breakthroughs.
Well, it's definitely welcome, because we have been going through a period, you know, we had Pluto in Sagittarius, which was all, as you were saying earlier, all big money, credit cards, excess, fast flying, and there is something to be said for trying to live in that way and coming back to the source and being more grounded and more natural. You know, I mean, it's quite common, I think, for younger generations to just pick up a mobile phone and interact in that way, rather than meet up at a coffee shop and talk one-to-one. And it's important for us to stay connected, you know, physically, you know, within each other's presence. So, yeah.
Well, I think that kind of leads on to, say, our visions of the future and looking at the age of Aquarius.
Yes, because it's a word that gets bounced around.
Yes.
And I think people don't really know what they're bouncing around. So, I mean, how do you see the age of Aquarius?
Well, because it's ruled by Uranus, which loves systems. It's very much to do with humanity as a whole, but it's very much the realm of the mind. It's not very grounded, and I'm wondering is that the future, as we evolve, we become less and less connected to the earth, and we get more and more into our heads, and the interaction between our physical bodies and technologies, I think, is going to become very blurred with implants and you know, the way we will be able to maybe live forever. We're going to have an awful lot of moral questions, moral dilemmas. But the air signs, we wouldn't really have society without the air signs, because they're the reasoning faculty.
And that's Gemini, Libra, Aquarius.
And Aquarius,
which is an air sign, which people don't realise. I think people think it's more water-based because they see the image, the water bearer.
Yes.
But it is an air sign, isn't it?
Yes, because in a way that sort of mystical substance that is pouring out of his urn is like sort of pouring knowledge out to the world. No, it's very, very much an air sign. And to do with how we are all connected on the level of mind. But you know, there's sort of great possibilities and great challenges, especially to do with morality. The more technologically advanced, we do become more godlike. Which is...
Well, we need to take responsibility for what is going on this planet. So we need to become stronger in ourselves and have a direction.
We do. Yes.
So let's just be cheeky here. We've spoken a lot about Pluto in Capricorn. I'm sure you've looked ahead and you have a general idea. The next phase after I forget the actual year, but 2026 or whenever it is, will be Pluto in Aquarius. And the last time Pluto was in Aquarius was definitely when the French Revolution was taking place. And during that period, any thoughts about where we might go in after these next 12 years? Because people are going to get angrier and angrier. I'm not sure if they're going to be able to break free in the way that they want to. They're being subjugated and pushed down. So it's going to that energy will have to release and go somewhere else. So what do you think?
Well, I think with Pluto in Capricorn is about the breaking down of the establishment, the breaking down of a lot of you know, governments and institutions and that kind of thing. Even Earth changes.
Yeah, that's
now,
a good
we can
point,
speculate quite a lot about Pluto in Capricorn, because if there are massive Earth changes, and there's an awful lot being spoken about that, and even the activity of the Sun, a big solar flare, something like that could create...
Well, NASA's been putting out all sorts of statements for the last couple of years to basically be afraid.
Yes.
You know,
so
because they're saying communications can go down. So.
Yeah, we're not geared up to deal with it.
Yeah.
So, for instance, say society kind of breaks down somewhat, then with Pluto in Aquarius, Aquarius is a very political sign. It's very much to do with organising humanity in society and governments and that kind of thing. So maybe we'll see a lot of breaking down of all the structures so that something new can be born.
And really it's the death of the world that we probably know today. Very, very fine, you know, very final, and a whole new, maybe that's the new beginning.
Yes.
The new age slowly coming through.
Things are changing very, very rapidly, very rapidly. And the thing with astrology, I don't think it can make concrete predictions, but you can certainly speculate, especially by looking at the cycles of what has gone before, to see what is occurring at the moment. And when Uranus was discovered in 1771, it was a time of huge revolution.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, the American Revolution, the French Revolution, the Industrial Revolution. So, again, we're seeing that that essence of the planet really in focus at the moment.
Well, we've got just a little bit of time left, and I think maybe the only thing we haven't really covered tonight, and you just picked up on it, and I think it's a very good point, are the earth changes that we have been seeing. I think there is something to be said about the intensity of the earthquakes and the shaking and what's going on, and also the weather patterns. I mean, obviously, we've just been told that we're having a drought, and now we're flooding.
The wettest drought ever.
The wettest drought ever, and do you think maybe the drought could be related to Neptune going back into Pisces? Sorry, not the drought, but the flooding could be, you know, with Neptune going back into Pisces and pushing that water energy through.
It certainly rules flooding, because Neptune has no boundaries. It breaks down boundaries and sort of floods over. Yeah, it also speaks of things like tsunamis, and Neptune, he ruled earthquakes.
Okay, I didn't realise that.
Yeah,
okay.
Oh yeah, he ruled earthquakes. So this kind of energy, it's really, and I think we are all one. We're all connected. We're very much connected with our planet, the Earth, and so what's going on with us is going to have an effect on our, you know, our Earth, our home, our planet.
Yeah. And, you know, I think you made a very good point as well, which you've made so many good points this evening, and I do hope that people get a chance to, you know, to digest all this information, because it's very, very good information. But, you know, you were talking about, as we go into the age of Aquarius and, you know, a whole new beginning, and you were also talking about the earth changes just then with that as well. And I think it's important to note that, you know, these earthquakes that we are having, because there's lots of, you know, questions, is it HAARP or is it natural?
Yeah.
And I think there is something to say, at least within the astrology, that they are natural. This is a natural occurrence, and it is the earth itself shifting itself. So it's very real and not just a man-made thing. Might be that going on as well, but also the astrology is showing that the earth is changing, and that's very important. So any other last things that you might like to add in? I have to just have a look to see what text we might have. Well, we only have a few minutes left.
Yeah, just to say that if people are going through their own personal transformations, if you can sort of think why it might be happening to you, why you might be going through a particularly challenging time, And to imagine that this is a phase. This is a phase.
Very
this is
important
something
to
that you'll go into and you'll come out of. I know that a lot of people are feeling the effects personally. So, it's a time where you can really take on board what is it telling me? What's the message here?
Yep.
How can I become more aware? And the more you can sort of transform yourself, that ripples out to the people around you. And then we can build something whereby the 100th monkey effect, where it just takes a certain number of people, and then all of a sudden the whole world picks up on this energy of change.
There is
for the better.
Absolutely. And there is something to be said about people having these awakenings, and the life is definitely falling apart, and it has to, because we can't move forward the way we need to if everybody's staying the same.
No.
And we have to get out of the victimhood of it and understand that you're not alone, that many of us have lost many people. I've lost a good 4 people in the last few years, close people, which is just unprecedented to face death so many times in such a short amount of time. But these are the themes that many people are experiencing. And again, yes, it's very important to just highlight that, because we can't have the change that we need if you're not willing to change, or if you're going to have to maybe give a few things up. Maybe the fancy job, maybe the fancy car, maybe go down a bit, and that's for countries as well. So
But undoubtedly, so many people, it doesn't mean whether they're in the alternative world or not, they are experiencing a shift of some kind. They're picking up on something that's going on in the collective. Definitely. Definitely.
So I guess we can say there might be an awakening afoot.
I think so. I don't think it will happen on the 21st of December 2012.
I agree.
A lot of people do believe that. I know one man who is intending on leaping off Bell Rock in Sedona because he feels he's going to go into the 5th dimension. Well,
we're going to have to leave it there, Helen, because we're almost running out of time. Oh, I was looking at the clock wrong. but yeah, we do need to wrap it up, and we have to be careful about things like that, though. You can't go too overboard with, with taking it too seriously. But, thank you. And On the Edge will be back next week. So until then, take care of yourselves.